What are we preparing kids for? That's the question we have to ask ourselves.
Great question.
We believe that every learner is capable of solving the world's greatest problems.
Oh, I love that.
We have to just recognize that the system itself is not the same as it was, and it's not what we want it to be, but more importantly, it's not what our learners need.
Hey everyone, it's Tamara Thompson with Broadcast Your Authority, and I'm super excited for our next guest. I'm actually going to have our co-host, Corey Gladwell, introduce her. Corey?
Hello. Yes, this guest is co-founder, CEO, and chief goddess, Annalies Corbin, chief goddess of the Past Foundation, also best-selling author of Hacking School. Tell us about yourself.
Well, thank you. I'm very excited to be here. So I am an anthropologist and an educator and an entrepreneur, and I like to think about big, giant, hairy, audacious problems and work with people, schools, kids, adults, you name it, just try to figure out how to solve those things.
It's amazing. That's the work you guys do at the Past Foundation, correct?
It is. So the Past Foundation is a nonprofit organization. We're based in Columbus, Ohio, but we work all over the U.S. and other parts of the world, and we focus on education, R&D, and all that means is we tackle those things and we try to come up with 1,000 different innovative ways to figure it out, make it relevant, do a lot of things with and for kids, and just change the world.
It's amazing. Yeah, I'm a girl dad and I have a 5.5-year-old. So this has been like my research for the last 5 years is like, how do I actually get her in a school, in an environment that is not only enjoyable and fun and engaging, but actually is going to educate her. So yeah, being able to talk to you about this is exciting because there's so many things that if you look at it a little bit differently, maybe we can have it be perfected and improved. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Annalies, you said your book's title is Hacking the School. So hacking tells me disrupting, changing, making it better, making it different. It does not necessarily have to be something negative. So how do you hack schools? What are you doing?
So the idea around hacking school is really to recognize that the education system globally is just that. It's a system or a lot of systems that are interrelated and they're complex, really, really complex. And changing complex things is hard, and it takes a tremendous amount of time and resources and momentum. And yes, we need to do that work. Don't get me wrong. I spend a lot of my time talking about how the current education system on a global scale is really not broken, but it's obsolete. And because it's obsolete, we have to just reimagine something completely different. We can't try to fix this thing anymore. We spend trillions and trillions of global dollars every year trying to fix something that's going to be resistant to being fixed because it's not actually broken. It's functioning exactly as it's designed. So instead, we need to focus on the individual teacher, the individual learner, the individual community, and say, what can we do at this really micro local level to change the paradigm so that learning is fun. It's about curiosity. It's about taking the time that you want and need to dig really, really deep into something that kids are interested in, not just because I have to click a box that says on Tuesday, we were on this page of this curriculum in this state or in this country. And so Hacking School, 5 Strategies to Link Learning to Life is really about empowering the people that are working with our learners, youth, to be able to make those really small, manageable shifts so that everybody is engaged in whatever it is we're trying to learn together.
I mean, it's a while ago when I went to school, certainly a few decades. And at that time, as pupils, we were already wondering how well does school prepare us for later life?
It doesn't currently, right?
And I did not find really too many things. I have to admit there are a few things, even some sentences in Old Greek and Latin helped me in my profession. But is it really a good preparation for later life, what we learn in school? At least at that time, I had my doubts. Now, since I'm adult, I remember a few things were quite good, but I think it could be improved. But this is decades ago. So now in the year 2025, how well does school prepare pupils for their later life?
Bottom line is, I always ask everybody, what is our intended outcome? What are we preparing kids for? That's the question we have to ask ourselves.
Great question.
And if we start with that question and then we step back and say, what do we have to design to make sure that we're actually preparing kids for our intended outcomes, then we would not be doing what we're doing right now across the board. And in fact, the most amazing educators that I meet, that I work with, that I interviewed, I use my own podcast as my interview tool, to be able to get to these really, really amazing people. And when you peel back all the different layers, what you find about every single one of these educators, that as adults, you would wax poetically, they had an impact on you and you never forgot them. Even if you only had them for a moment, whatever happened was so profound that it left an indelible mark. And so, those people are incredibly passionate. They actually show up in that classroom or out in that field or in that barn or wherever the teaching and learning is happening with their true authentic selves. And what they're teaching is their passion. And they're letting you glom onto that. And they're teaching you then how to find your own. That's the magic. That's what hacking school is about.
I love how passionate you are.
Yeah.
Like you dive in there so much. I know we kind of jumped over this, but I know like that you created the PASS Foundation with, I believe, a couple other people. There's a few of you, anthropologists, like creators together. And you started this like 25 years ago to start this overall mission that you're so passionate about. Could you share like how that kind of came to be a little bit on the backstory front?
So the PASS Foundation, absolutely. So everybody that was involved, we were all applied research scientists in different fields and backgrounds. So, I'm an anthropologist, but more specifically, I'm an archaeologist. Even more specifically, I'm an underwater archeologist. I study shipwrecks.
Cool. Wow.
And everybody that was part of the founding
take me with
group,
you.
I know, right? It was a lot of fun.
You study shipwrecks?
Yes.
Is that what wow.
Shipwrecks, yeah.
That's simple.
And, my point with that is that everybody who was one of the founding group at the PASS Foundation had some type of applied research science. We had folks from museum backgrounds and chemists and biologists, or environmental folks, you name it. And mostly what was going on is we had a lot of conversations when we would come together at conferences or whatnot, talking about, the students, whether they were undergraduate or graduate students or their first time jobs out in the real world, in labs or whatnot. They super smart young people, young adults, really, really amazing. They were epic test takers, right? They could take the GRE or the LCAT or the MCAT, you name it, right? With the best of them. But I used to like to say they couldn't navigate their way out of a paper bag with a Klieg light on their foreheads because there was this lack of some real fundamental skills. There were these really strange gaps. The longer that we were working sort of in that space of the young professional or preparing the young professional through collegiate experience or whatnot, what we were finding is how do we figure out where that disconnect is? Because business and industry is blaming post-secondary, right? Colleges and universities. Colleges and universities are saying, oh, no, it's the high school's fault. The high school or K-12 is blaming the families and the community. So nobody was taking ownership over this issue. And so we collectively said, well, let's think about this from a completely different perspective. When we all take our science, whatever that happens to be, out into the real world to share it with other people, right? We watch the world be excited about what we're doing. They want to get their hands on. They want to do that thing with us. They don't want us just to stand up and talk about it. They literally want to try it. So that seemed like that might be the kernel of the magic in all of this. And so we decided what would happen if a group of non-K-12, traditional K-12 people came to this problem with a different set of questions because we wanted a different outcome. Right?
And there are certain
that was the birth of the PASS Foundation.
Yeah, there are certain phases where which are important for certain talents, depending on the age, and this is certainly something which we have to consider. In which age group is what kind of talent, what kind of education the most important and the most forming for the future?
I was just gonna say that growing up in Louisiana, I was in advanced biology, and we colored crawfish. That was what my education.
Did you say colored?
That's it. No, I just think that it's so important to have better education systems. We're all just ingrained into like blue collared occupations like my parents were. And so I thought, let me get out of poverty, go get an education. And I'd put my full trust in getting an education, going to college, getting an MBA. But the best business growth that I had was through just experiencing and growing our own business. Everything I learned in my MBA program was not relevant towards what we did in scaling our business from 0 to 7 figures annually.
So true. Yeah, so true. I know when I was in school, I used to be forced into advanced classes because I would get done early and distract other students. And so they would force me into honors classes, and I'm like, I don't want to do this. And then I would just kind of rebel against it or not
They
go.
do that to
and
me too.
Yeah.
They're like, you're going in honors. I'm like, I don't want to do this.
You're like, I didn't write the letter and apply. And they're like,
Right.
yeah, but you're a distraction to the other students, you know?
Yeah.
But I think there's so much, and then I wasn't engaged because I'm like, it wasn't something I wanted to do. But when I look back on when I was younger, I was 14, I wrote a paper called The Universe Inside Our Minds. And it was basically neuroscience, but neuroscience wasn't popular then. And there was no one talking about neuroscience. But if it was something where, the type of work you do and the research you do, if teachers had been involved with the PASS Foundation back then, they would have said, oh, that's neuroscience. You should go. And if I had found that out, I'd be a neuroscientist. I would have just followed that path and gone down there. So I think there's so many of these things that if they can use the skill set and the research and the ideas that you guys are putting forward to actually apply it, I imagine where the world would be. So I'm excited about that.
Annalies, can you walk us through the 5 strategies in your book and how they help link learning to life for students and communities?
Sure. So one of the things that we know, and one of the pieces with the book that I just to sort of throw it out there because it gives it some context. So in my travels and talking and working with all kinds of educational programs around the world, one of the things that I saw over and over again were really incredible innovations, really amazing innovations. But I also saw some really so sad, just failures. But in the middle were these, what I call epic near misses, right? And so one of the questions that I had in working on the book was really, so what are the things out there, right, that are the difference between a failure and a miss and just a wow factor? And so one of the things that I found is the things that are really remarkable that are also sustained in education, because that's another problem in the world of education. It runs on a 2-year cycle based on the way funding happens. And so every 2 years we have this new great innovation and then a new funding strategy comes along. We rip the Band-Aid off and we throw another Band-Aid on it, right? So I really wanted to know the ones that are around 10 years, 20 years, 30 years later, what's the magic? And the magic is these 5 elements are in every single one of them. They have other things because they're locally derived, but the reality are these 5. And so the 5 are student agency. So there's no, we're going to send you to that honors class because you need something else to do. When we're putting student agency or learner-centeredness up front, we say, hey, Corey, what are you really interested in right now? And instead of sending you to that other thing, let's have you spend your time, energy, and effort digging into that until you're exhausted by it.
Love it. Imagine
that instead. So agency. The second one is culturally relevant or culturally responsive. Corey's still going to be, a cut up and cause problems in class if he can't figure out how the content relates to him. And it could be as simple as, couching the content in a context that he's already experienced or he has some experience with or he's curious about or he can relate to because my uncle is X, Y, or Z. So some type of relatability to the context, that cultural relevancy. The third one is something we call mastery or competency-based. And basically that says, we don't need you to get a 95 on every test. We need you to know this content so well that you can go out and teach it to others, right? That you feel so confident that you can then ask that same content follow-up questions. You don't need a teacher to lead you to that. You're going to go there. That's mastery. And then transdisciplinary teaching and learning. And basically what that means is we're going to put everything together into context. We're getting rid of the silos. When we go to work, we don't stop what we're doing to figure out the math of how to scale my business. We don't do that. We do it as part of the bigger, broader set of questions that we're asking in the work that we're doing. So this idea that we go to math and then we ring a bell, and which I find obnoxious. And then we go to English and the two aren't related. And then we go to ring a bell and we go to science and it's not related to the other two things we just did, and so on and so forth. So transdisciplinary takes those silos away. And then the last one is problem-based. And that's the biggest element of all of it. And basically it says, we believe that every learner is capable of solving the world's greatest problems.
Oh, I love that.
And if we believe that young disruptive Corey is going to be brilliant one day. I'm picking on Corey.
I like
What we're gonna find, right, is because we believe that about him and we let him tackle things that are 1,000 times beyond his experience, his knowledge, his understanding. He will meander his way to figuring lots of things out. So problem-based just says that we're going to do it all hands-on. We're going to get rid of the silos. We're going to give you time to master the content. We're going to make sure it has something to do with you. And finally, we're going to say, you own your learning journey, not me.
Love it.
So I have another question. So students are exposed, obviously, to influence at school, let's say from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Then they are exposed to social media and get their input, their education there. Then they are exposed to their parents and get their education or their values transferred there. How can we synchronize that? How can we make sure that these individual silos have not kind of conflicting messages, conflicting types of education or different values? Is there something which you can address?
Yeah, the kids aren't doing what you think they're doing. So it's not impacting them in the way that, you know, as adults and professionals, many, many generations back, if you will, right, from the learning experience, and I think that's one of the big issues that we have. It's why the educational system is no longer relevant and it's not working for those that are inside it, is because it doesn't understand who our young people are today.
Well, especially
so
with
true.
like social media and everything
100%,
else. I mean,
yeah.
I know in 1998 when AOL online was like dial up, you know, like I got my
mail.
first email, you got mail.
Yeah.
Like it was like, what, IM chat? What is this?
Yeah.
You know, like that. I was like a senior in high school. And so that was like the evolution of things starting. And I know now you see every like 10-year-old, 12-year-old, they've got their phones. Like we didn't have that stuff. So
Yeah.
everything is completely different. I wouldn't even know because I don't have children, what it's like other than hearing from everybody else. Like, oh yeah, they have a phone for emergencies,
Yeah.
but you know that the kids are out there like,
100%.
you know, like
Yeah.
I can't even imagine, but the way that people's brains think and the children's brains think has to be way different in reflection of what the media is out there and everything going on and what they have access to.
Right. And it is very different. And all of those things are true. And there's positives and there's negatives. All of that is true. We also know that especially our youngest learners with exposure to screens and all of these pieces and parts, their brains are literally not forming the same way. There's a physiological response that's also happening.
Yeah.
So there's a lot in this mix. But I guess that my caution would always be to sort of step back and say, yes, and we can control for some of those variables. And there is going to be different messaging in different places. All of that is true. The bigger question I think that we need to be asking is, how are our young people internalizing all of this? And what is it that we need to help them learn to do through their own growth and development? And I would argue one of the most foundational things that we need to do is help them be able to take in data and to make some real assessments of that data, not based on the biases that's being fed to them through an
Right.
algorithm, not based on what my friends say, not based on what my parents say, but to really to be able to understand how to take the information and to take the time and to be reflective of it. And it's complicated, right? Because mental health and wellness in our youngest learners is at an all-time high. We've not seen it like this before. A lot of it is access to so much stuff. We're being bombarded all the time. And so we have to just recognize that the system itself is not the same as it was, and it's not what we want it to be, but more importantly, it's not what our learners need.
It
Yeah.
will need some research, some data to make the right decisions.
Absolutely.
Just want to come back,
Yeah.
Tama. In your high school ages, you experienced the new AOL. AOL. I forgot
Yeah,
even
AOL.
the name.
Said it perfect.
Dial up.
My high school time is far, far more in the past. And we played soccer in the summer
I played
and hockey in
basketball
the
too,
winter. But today, kids are really moving. If they move their thumb and
That's their
workout.
sport.
to work out.
Workout.
So this muscle is basically the most exercised muscle in the
Screen time.
childhood today. So how much of a role does exercise and sports play in your system?
Well, we know that getting kids outside makes all the difference in the world. We truly do need to unplug, all of us, including all of us, sitting here having this conversation. The reality is we know that there's all kinds of amazing research that says if you go outside, if you spend time in nature, that it's going to change your perspective. And it does. And so one of the things that we do is, the hands-on work that we're really advocating for is going to have numerous places and venues where it can be applied, right? You can be interested in coding and technology, right? But if the tool that you're coding is a tool that takes place someplace else, then you've got to go out there with it. So get up out of your chair, get away from the desk, get away from the monitor, go out into the real world and function. We know that's critically important.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love this. I could continue this conversation all day.
Yeah, same.
For like the educators, the parents, the community leaders listening to this episode, Annalies, could you tell our audience like how they can connect with you, grab your book, everything else?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So you can find me on all the different social channels at Annalies Corbin. You can also reach out to passfoundation.org. We would be more than happy to chat with you and share. You can find Hacking School, 5 Strategies to Link Learning to Life at Amazon or any other place where you like to buy your books. You can also sign up for some of our online content. We have just launched new courses on all 5 of the strategies and created an online community where practitioners, parents, advocates can come together and just learn some more together.
We appreciate you coming in and joining us today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And those of you watching, definitely connect with Annalies, pick up her book. She's a very educated woman that's super passionate. And I love that about you. Thank you again. So be sure to subscribe to our show, Broadcast Your Authority, on YouTube. Take a listen on Spotify or Apple. Leave us a review, and we'll see you in the next episode.